The next sutta is 5.6.58. At one time the Exalted One dwelt near Vesali, at the gabled hall in Mahavana. And early one morning, after dressing, the Exalted One took bowl and rope and entered Vesali for alms. And having gone his round, on his return after the midday meal, he made his way into the great forest of Mahavana and sat down for the noonday rest at the foot of a tree. Now at that time a company of Lichavi young men were out stalking and ranging in Mahavana. They had their bows strung and were surrounded by a pack of dogs, and they saw the Exalted One seated at the foot of the tree. Then at that sight they cast aside their bows, called off their dogs, and approached the Exalted One, saluted him, and stood with hands upraised in silence, reverencing him. Just then Mahanama, the Lichavi, was stretching his legs in Mahavana by walking up and down, and he saw those young Lichavis with upraised hands, silently reverencing the Exalted One. And Mahanama, the Lichavi, went to the Exalted One, saluted him, and sat down at one side. So seated, he said with bated breath, "They will become Vajjans, they will become Vajjans." And the Buddha said, "But why, Mahanama, do you speak so? They will become Vajjans." "Lord, these Lichavi young men are quick-tempered, rough, greedy fellows. Such presents as are sent by clan folk, sugar cane, jujube fruit, sweet cakes, sweet meats and lollipops, they go about plundering and eating. They slap the women and girls of the clan on the back. Such are these fellows who now with upraised hands stand in silence reverencing the Exalted One." And the Buddha said, "Wheresoever these 5 conditions are found, Mahanama, whether in a crowned warrior Raja, or in a countryman living on his paternal farm, or in a general of an army, or in a governor of villages, or in a guild master, or in those who make themselves the sole power among the clans, growth may be expected and not decline." "What 5? Take the case, Mahanama, of a clansman who with wealth gotten by work and zeal, gathered by the strength of the arm, earned by the sweat of the brow, justly obtained in a lawful way. He honors, reveres, venerates, and reverences his parents. At once his parents, honored, revered, venerated, and reverenced, fondly regard him with loving thoughts and say, 'Long life to you, and may your long life be protected.' To the clansman Mahanama who has fond regard of his parents, growth may be expected and not decline. So too, Mahanama, to the clansman who has fond regard of his children and wife, his slaves, workmen and folk and men, growth may be expected and not decline. To the clansman who has fond regard of the laborers in his fields and those whose business is with the boundaries, growth may be expected and not decline. To the clansman Mahanama who has fond regard of the Devas, celestial beings, who are accustomed to receive offerings, growth may be expected and not decline. Moreover, Mahanama, a clansman who with wealth gotten by work and zeal, gathered by the strength of the arm, earned by the sweat of the brow, justly obtained in a lawful way, honors, reveres, venerates, and reverences recluses and Brahmins, will at once by them so honored be regarded with compassion, with benevolence, and they will say, 'Long life to you, and may your long life be protected.' To the clansman Mahanama who is regarded with compassion by recluse and Brahmins, growth may be expected and not decline. Wheresoever these 5 conditions are found, Mahanama, whether in a crowned warrior Raja, a countryman living on his paternal farm, a general of an army, a governor of villages, a guild master, or in those who make themselves the sole power among the clans, growth may be expected and not decline. That's the end of the sutta. Here in this sutta, the Buddha went to Mahavana. Vana means like a forest. Maha is great, so it's a great forest. And there was these young Lichavi men who went hunting. And when they saw the Buddha sitting underneath the tree, they instinctively felt that this was a holy man. So they put down their bows, called off their dogs, and went to pay respect to the Buddha. And this Mahanama, the Lichavi, probably one of the followers of the Buddha, he said he saw this as being very unusual because he said these Lichavi young men are generally very rough, greedy fellows, quick-tempered and all that. But he was very surprised that they are paying respect to the Buddha. So the Buddha said, whoever, no matter what kind of person, if he has these 5 factors, then he may progress, growth may be expected. First one, he has fond regard of his parents. And secondly, he has fond regard of his family, children and wife, his slaves and workers. Thirdly, the laborers in his fields, and those who do business with him. Fourthly, the devas, celestial beings, that means making offerings to them. And fifthly, renunciants, monks. He has fond regard for monks also. Then the Buddha said, with these 5 conditions, whoever he may be, he is bound to make progress, because when he has fond regard for these people, they all wish him well. And if a person is well regarded by others, he has a lot of metta, and a lot of loving kindness goes back to him, then he should progress. That means a person, basically a good person must have love in his heart. If a person has love in his heart for other people, then he is a good person. It doesn't matter whether he appears a very rough person, greedy person, etc. The most important human qualities we must have. If we have these basic human qualities, basic good human qualities, like love in our heart, then we can be confident that we are going the right way. It's not only wisdom that's important. Some people think, meditation is all important. These basic human qualities are very important. On the next sutta, 5.6.59, the Buddha said, monks, it is hard to find one gone forth when old, endowed with 5 qualities. What 5? Monks, it is hard to find one subtle-minded, gone forth when old. Hard to find one proper in deportment, very learned, a preacher of Dhamma. It is hard to find one who has the Vinaya or discipline by heart. Monks, it is hard to find one gone forth when old, endowed with these 5 qualities. That's the end of the sutta. Here the Buddha is saying, when a person renounces, goes forth in his old age, it's difficult to find him as a good monk, because these various qualities difficult for him to have. First one, to be subtle-minded. The second one, to be proper in deportment, to carry himself well. Third one, learned in the discourses of the Buddha. Fourth one, a preacher of Dhamma. Then the last one, who knows the Vinaya, the disciplinary code by heart. So, as I mentioned before, when a person is old and renounces, it's very difficult for him to adjust to the new lifestyle. Also, when we are old, we become weak physically and mentally. That's why the first thing here the Buddha said, difficult to find one subtle-minded, with a strong mind, with a capable mind. On the next one, 5.7.65. Monks, endowed with 5 qualities, a monk may well talk to his fellows in the holy life. What 5? Monks, herein a monk in himself has achieved virtue and explains a question raised by a talk on the achieving of virtue. Similarly, for concentration, insight, liberation, and in himself has achieved the knowledge and insight of liberation, and explains a question raised by a talk on the achieving of knowledge and insight of liberation. Verily, monks, endowed with these 5 qualities, a monk may well talk to his fellows in the holy life. That's the end of the sutta. Basically, what this sutta is trying to say is, if a monk were to talk about virtue or concentration or insight or liberation or knowledge and insight of liberation, he should preferably be experienced in these things. If he's not experienced in these things, it would be difficult for him to explain. It would be difficult for him to explain well and to explain correctly these different things. So that is why if a person has attained, then he would be better qualified to teach. But then you see, like during the Buddha's time, there were arahants around. So if there were arahants around, the best teachers would be the arahants. And when the arahants are not around, then of course you have to start going down the scale to see whether you can get Aryas to teach. And if you can't get Aryas to teach, then you have to get people who can teach from theory. So we have to see what kind of teachers we can get. Sutta number 5.8.73. Now a certain monk visited the Exalted One, saluted him, and sat down at one side. So seated, he said to the Exalted One, Lord, they say, living by Dhamma, living by Dhamma. Lord, how does a monk live by Dhamma? Just stop here just to say this word Lord actually is a translation of the word Bhante. During the Buddha's time, the monks called each other Avuso, reverend or friend. And only the Buddha was called the Bhante. But later, when the Buddha was about to pass into Mahaparinibbana, he instructed the junior monks to call the senior monks Bhante, and that the senior monks could call the junior monks Avuso, reverend or friend, or just by their name. Then the Buddha replied, Monk, consider the monk who masters Dhamma. He spends the day in that mastery. He neglects to go apart and devotes not himself to tranquilization of the mind, Ceto Samatha. Monk, that monk is said to be swift to master, but he lives not by Dhamma. Again, consider the monk who teaches others Dhamma in detail, as he has heard it, as he has mastered it. He spends the day in convincing others of Dhamma. He neglects to go apart and devotes not himself to tranquilization of the mind. Monk, that monk is said to be swift to convince, but he lives not by Dhamma. Again, consider the monk who gives in full a repetition of Dhamma, as he has heard it, as he has learned it. He spends the day in repeating it. He neglects to go apart and devotes not himself to tranquilization of the mind. Monk, that monk is said to be swift to repeat, but he lives not by Dhamma. Then consider the monk who turns his mind to Dhamma, ponders over it, reflects on it, as he has heard it, as he has learned it. He spends his day in thinking about Dhamma. He neglects to go apart and devotes not himself to tranquilization of the mind. Monk, that monk is said to be swift to think, but he lives not by Dhamma. But monk, take the case of the monk who masters Dhamma and spends not the day in that mastery, neglects not to go apart and devotes himself to tranquilization of the mind. Verily monk, such a monk is one who lives by Dhamma. Monk, thus verily have I declared one swift to master, one swift to convince, one swift to repeat, one swift to think, and one who lives by Dhamma. Monk, what should be done by a teacher for his disciples, seeking their good, from compassion and out of pity, that has been done by me for you. Behold these 3 roots, these empty places, monk. Cultivate jhana, monk, and be not slothful. Reproach not yourself afterwards. This is our command to you. That's the end of the sutta. Here the Buddha is saying that studying the suttas, teaching, repeating and reflecting on the suttas or Dhamma are important. But if one does not practice ceto samatha, tranquilization of the mind, one does not live by Dhamma. That means although the monk does the other duties, he must devote himself some time to tranquilization of the mind. This word ceto samatha, ceto comes from the word citta, the mind. Samatha is tranquilization. So you find that in the suttas, samatha practice is very much a part of the Buddhist meditation, and in addition to vipassana. But if you look into the suttas, more often than not, the word samatha is stressed more than vipassana, because samatha, tranquilization of the mind, is the partner where we get rid of the hindrances. And you have heard the suttas before that the Buddha said that the hindrances is that which prevents us from getting insight. So we have to cultivate samatha to get the insight. And both samatha and vipassana are part and parcel of Buddhist meditation. You've also heard previously one of the suttas that Buddha said that when we attain the samadhi, the hindrances are restrained without a conscious effort, and then one gets to see things as they really are. And the last part of the sutta, the Buddha said, he told his monks to cultivate jhana. The word here is jayati or jayata, and it means to cultivate jhana. So sometimes translators translate this as meditate, but the literal meaning is to cultivate jhana. That is why when Buddhism went to China, the meditation school was called the Chan Chung, the Chan school. And that word Chan comes from the word Chan No, and Chan No is actually from the word jhana. So in the early days, meditation was synonymous with cultivating jhana. That's why the Buddha here says told his monks to cultivate jhana. And this sutta is quite an important sutta because a monk can get caught up with many duties and activities. And that is one of the hindrances to the holy life. You see later there are others like talking, sleeping, etc. So we are saying that a monk can get caught up with many duties and activities, and that is one of the hindrances to the holy life. And so a good monastery should have minimum hours of group sitting for everyone. The next sutta is 5.8.75. The Buddha said, monks, these 5 kinds of warriors are found in the world. What 5? Monks, In one case, there is the warrior who, just at the sight of the cloud of dust, loses heart and falters and braces up not, nor is able to go down to battle. Monks, there is here this sort of warrior. This monks is the first kind of warrior found in the world. Again, though another endure the sight of the dust cloud, just on seeing a standard lifted up, he loses heart and falters and braces up not, nor is able to go down to battle. Monks, there is here this sort of warrior. This monks is the second kind. Again, though another endure the dust cloud and the standard, at the sound of tumult he loses heart, nor is able to go down to battle. Monks, there is here this sort of warrior. This monks is the third kind. Though another endure the dust cloud, the standard and the tumult, when struck in conflict he fails. Monks, there is here this sort of warrior. This monks is the fourth kind. Then there is one who endures the dust cloud, the standard, the tumult and the conflict. Victorious in battle, winning the fight, he continues at the head of the battle. Monks, there is here this sort of warrior. This monks is the fifth kind of warrior found in the world. Monks, these are the 5 kinds of warriors found in the world. Even so, monks, these 5 kinds of persons like warriors are found among monks. What 5? Monks, in the case of the monk who on seeing the dust cloud loses heart and falters and braces up not, nor is able to stay the course of the holy life. He declares his weakness, gives up the training, and returns to the lower life. And what for him is the dust cloud? Monk, that monk hears, it's said, in such and such a village or town, there are women and girls, fair to look upon, lovely, with a wondrous lotus-like beauty. And when he hears this, he loses heart, and falters, and braces up not, nor is he able to stay the course of the holy life, but declares his weakness, gives up the training, and returns to the lower life. This for him is the dust cloud. Monks, just as the warrior on seeing the dust cloud loses heart and falters and braces up not, nor is able to go down to battle, like that monks, I say, is this person. Monks, there is here this sort of person. This monks is the first kind of person like a warrior found among monks. Again, monks, a monk endures the dust cloud, but at the sight of the standard loses heart and returns to the low life. And what for him is the standard? In this case, the monk does not merely hear that in such and such a village or town there are some lovely women and girls, fair to look upon, with wondrous lotus-like beauty, but he sees it for himself, and at the sight loses heart and returns to the low life. This for him is the standard. Monks, just as the warrior endures the dust cloud, but at the sight of the standard loses heart, like that monks, I say, is this person. Monks, there is here this sort of person. This monks is the second kind of person, like a warrior found among monks. Again, monks, a monk endures both the dust cloud and the standard, but at the sound of the tumult loses heart and returns to the low life. And what for him is the tumult? In this case, monks, some woman comes along, and when he has gone to forest, tree root or lonely place, and laughs him to scorn, rails on him, snaps her fingers at him, and mocks him, and being so treated by a woman, he loses heart and returns to the lower life. This for him is the tumult. Monks, just as the soldier endures both the dust cloud and the standard, but at the sound of the tumult loses heart, like that monks, I say, is this person. This monks is a third kind of person, like a warrior found among monks. Again, monks, a monk endures the dust cloud, standard and tumult, but being struck in conflict fails. And what for him is the conflict? In this case, monks, Some woman comes along when he has gone to forest, tree root or some lonely place, and sits down close beside him, lies down close beside him, and cuddles up to him, and being treated thus by a woman, without giving up the training, without declaring his weakness, he gives himself over to fornication. This to him is the conflict. Monks, just as the warrior endures the dust cloud, standard and tumult, but when struck in conflict fails, like that monks, I say, is this person. This monks is a third kind of person, like a warrior found among monks. Again monks, there is the monk who endures the dust cloud, the standard, the tumult. That was the fourth kind of person found among monks. Again monks, there is the monk who endures the dust cloud, the standard, the tumult and the conflict. Victorious in battle, winning the fight, he continues at the head of the battle. And what to him is victory in battle? Herein also monks, some woman comes along when the monk has gone to forest, tree root or some lonely place, and sits down close beside him, lies down close beside him, and cuddles up to him. But being treated thus by a woman, he disentangles and frees himself, and goes off wheresoever he will. And he resorts to some secluded spot, forest, tree root, mountain, glen, rock cave, cemetery, wooded upland, open space or heap of straw. And come to forest, tree root or empty hut, he sits cross-legged, with body erect, setting mindfulness in front of him. Putting away all desires, he abides with heart free therefrom. He cleanses his mind of desires. Putting away ill will and hatred, he abides with heart free therefrom. Kindly and compassionate to all creatures, he cleanses his mind of ill will and hatred. Putting away sloth and torpor, he abides free therefrom. Conscious of light, mindful and self-possessed, he cleanses his mind of sloth and torpor. Putting away restlessness and worry, he abides poised, with heart serene within. He cleanses his mind of restlessness and worry. Putting away doubt, he abides with doubt passed by. No more he questions why. He has cleansed his mind of doubt. Putting away these 5 hindrances, when the mind's defilements are weakened by insight, aloof from sensual desires, etc., he enters and abides in the first jhana, the second jhana, third jhana, fourth jhana. With the heart thus serene, purified, cleansed, spotless, devoid of defilement, supple, ready to act, firm and imperturbable, he bends the mind to know the destruction of the asavas. He understands as it really is. This is dukkha. He understands as it really is. This is the origin of dukkha. He understands as it really is. This is the ending of dukkha. He understands as it really is. This is the way leading to the ending of dukkha. He understands as it really is. These are asavas. This is the origin of the asavas. This is the ending of the asavas. This is the way leading to the ending of the asavas. Knowing this, seeing this, his heart is free from the asava of lust, free from the asava of becoming or existence, free from the asava of ignorance. And in the freedom comes the knowledge of that freedom, and he knows birth is destroyed, lived is the holy life, done is what had to be done. There is no more coming to this state of things. This to him is victory in battle. Monks, just as the warrior endures the dust cloud, the standard, the tumult and the conflict, and victorious in battle, winning the fight, continues even at the head of the battle, like that monks, I say, is this person. Monks, there is here this sort of person. This monks is the 5th kind of person, like a warrior found among monks. These monks are the 5 kinds of persons, like a warrior found among monks. That's the end of the sutta. Here, this sutta is giving a simile of the holy life to a battle, a fight with Mara. And you can see that a monk can lose the fight at several stages along the way. Could be due to listening about some beautiful women, or seeing some beautiful women, or being teased or scorned by some woman, or by being caught by some women when he's alone. So then the last one is the one who succeeds in the holy life. And you can see that this person who succeeds in the holy life, he cleanses his mind of the 5 hindrances, puts away the 5 hindrances, and then using the 5 hindrances, he understands the 4 Aryan truths. You notice in the sutta, there's this passage which says, with the heart or mind thus serene, purified, cleansed, spotless, devoid of defilement, supple, ready to act, firm and imperturbable, it bends the mind to know the destruction of the asavas. So this is the condition for the insight to arise. The mind that is purified, spotless, devoid of defilement, firm and imperturbable, and that can be attained only through the samatha meditation, by attaining one-pointedness of mind. And then only with that very clear mind that monk practices vipassana, contemplation, to get wisdom. The other thing to note about this sutta is that here the asavas, 3 asavas are mentioned. The asava of lust, kamasava, the asava of becoming or existence, bhava sava, and then the asava of ignorance, avijja sava, 3. But in some sutta in the Digha Nikaya, they added a 4th one, which is Dita Sava, the asava of views. Asava, as I've mentioned before, means the uncontrolled mental outflows that causes suffering and cause existence to arise, because the Buddha said that existence or the world arises dependent on consciousness. Now, another sutta we come to is 5.8.77. The next 4 suttas are all very important suttas, talking about the fears in the future, fears in the way in the future. The first one is 5.8.77. The Buddha said, "Monks, there are these 5 fears in the way, from contemplating which the earnest, ardent, resolute monk, forest gone, ought to live just to attain the unattained, to master the unmastered, to realize the unrealized." What 5? Take the case of a monk, forest gone, who reflects thus: "I am now quite alone in the forest, and living here alone, a snake may bite me, a scorpion may bite me, or a centipede may bite me and cause my death, and that would be a hindrance to me. Behold now, I will put forth energy to attain the unattained, to master the unmastered, to realize the unrealized." Monks, this is the first fear in the way, from contemplating which the earnest, ardent, resolute monk, forest gone, ought to live just to attain the unattained, to master the unmastered, to realize the unrealized. Again he reflects: "I may stumble and fall, the food I have eaten may make me ill, bile may convulse me, phlegm choke me, wind within stab and shake me, and cause my death, and that would be a hindrance to me. Behold now, I will put forth energy." Monks, this is a second fear in the way. Again he reflects: "And I consort with fearsome creatures, lion, tiger, leopard, bear and hyena. They may take my life and cause my death, and that would be a hindrance to me. Behold now, I will put forth energy." Monks, this is the third fear in the way. Again he reflects: "And I consort with thieves, who either have done their deed or go about to do it. They may take my life and cause my death, and that would be a hindrance to me. Behold now, I will put forth energy." Monks, this is the fourth fear in the way. Moreover, monks, the monk, forest gone, reflects thus: "I am now alone in the forest, and there are fearsome non-humans here. They may take my life and cause my death, and that would be a hindrance to me. Behold now, I will put forth energy to attain the unattained, to master the unmastered, to realize the unrealized." Monks, this is the fifth fear in the way, from contemplating which the earnest, ardent, resolute monk, forest gone, ought to live just to attain the unattained, to master the unmastered, to realize the unrealized. Monks, these are the 5 fears in the way. That's the end of the sutta. Here this sutta is about the contemplation on death, which a person who is serious about the spiritual path should always make. Because the Buddha said the body is like a cancer, as though we have cancer. We have very limited time left, and we don't know when we are going to pass away, but pass away we definitely will. So it is good to contemplate now and then that there are very many ways by which we could suddenly pass away. In this case, the monk is contemplating that his death might be due to creeping creatures or to other animals, or accident may happen, or thieves or bandits may kill him, or spirits may take his life. So in the same way, even for us now in this present age, we should make the contemplation. Almost every day we are on the road, driving a car or being driven, and an accident could happen, especially if you travel long distance, or on a highway when you go on the fast lane. And sometimes in the house we use electrical appliances, you might get an electric shock. Nowadays there's so much cancer and other serious diseases, and the incidence is very high, like 1 in 5 people, and we have to contemplate that we might be having cancer in our body, and yet we don't know now, and might surface in 1 or 2 years. So all these things we have to contemplate to remind us that death is just by the side. Very soon the cold fingers of death will touch us. So we always have to make this contemplation.